Hey guys, good evening. How are you doing?
Great, great
How are you
form,
doing,
Kieran.
Kieran?
Good to see you. Yourself as well, Derek.
Very good, very good. Good to see you, Herman. Good to see you, Kieran.
Yeah.
Well, it's been interesting there a few weeks. Again, we've been looking at ways where we can actually bring people together. I think it's very important to find a way forward, a way that we can actually boost the Irish economy. One of the things that frustrated me there for years, looking at the way Ireland spends money. I mean, again, it's absolutely shocking. I think we can all agree on that. The whole NGO space, is eventually will bankrupt Ireland if we don't pull back from it. At least that's what I believe. And of course, I'm coming from the environmental space. I see the amount of money that's being pumped in and wasted there globally. It's absolutely staggering. I remember being in West Africa there a few years ago, and I was speaking to some folks, and it was funny, because I'd seen a video, something similar to it a few weeks prior to that. And this lady, she asked me a similar question, what was asked on that podcast. And that was, did every person in Ireland have an NGO? When you have people going from Ireland and they speaking about the problem with racism and telling black people in Africa they didn't understand it, and telling black people in Africa they didn't understand the problems of climate change and so on and so forth. And it kind of blows their mind up. I mean, the most important thing to these folks is, try to put a meal in front of their family at the end of the day. But the nonsense that comes out of Ireland, I've seen for years is unreal. I came from the environmental space, and I saw that the carbon taxes as they increase on a yearly basis is crippling businesses, and there it's certainly not good for the economy. Like, one thing that I've said for years, having carbon taxes in Western economies, I mean, it's definitely counterproductive. We saw last year that the Chinese ended up buying Volkswagen by using carbon credits from solar panels and wind turbines they're actually selling into Europe. They use the carbon credits for them to buy one of the most iconic automobile companies in Europe, which is absolutely staggering.
My view on that, Kieran, is that this irrational phobia of carbon dioxide is a complete scam based on a lie that it is man-made CO2 is increasing climate, global temperatures and stuff like that there. Actually, what the main impact on the climate and global temperatures is actually proximity to the sun and sunspots. If you look up Malkovich cycles, you will see that it's basically about proximity to the sun. And it's carbon dioxide, we were taught in school, is necessary for photosynthesis. The basis of all life is from, and actually even NASA have been able to show over the last 30 years that the increased global levels of CO2 have led to a greener planet. There's more trees and there's more vegetation globally than there was 30 years ago. So it's a good, and Ireland's in a great position because, well, our beef, for example, we'll get on to various things today about talking about the potential that Ireland had in our fisheries, in our agriculture. Look at Irish beef for a start. All around Europe, Irish Irish steak is in all the top restaurants in France and Belgium, all over Europe, because it's grass-fed, it's completely natural, it's very healthy, it's tasty, and it's great stuff. But this phobia that like the European Commission, there was an idea within Ireland as well, always looking to be the best one in the class to please Brussels. They were looking to decrease the Irish herd there a number of years ago until it came out. But because the EU wants to cut the number of cattle that we have in Ireland, it's a very bad idea and very necessary. And on what you're talking about, the NGO, it's quite incredible that 8% of the Irish budget, national budget every year from a taxpayer, it's about 105 billion per year. The Irish government spends 8% of that on just NGOs. Now that employs, I've heard it called the CAP for the middle classes of South Dublin. It employs, I believe, 1/3 of a million people. And you're right, Kieran, that video of the African woman at the UN asking a very simple question, like there's so many people employed in Ireland in NGOs. She asked, does everybody in Ireland work for have their own NGO? It's a ridiculous amount of money, wasting taxpayers, hard-earned money. Many people go out and work hard every day to support their family and build up a better Ireland, and they deserve more respect, and their money deserves more respect than waste and all these left-wing losers who would never get a job anywhere else in Ireland.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, when you start really crunching the numbers, and I've seen the waste, you know, there globally. Again, when it comes to this space, I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. It's being pushed by the World Economic Forum, and of course, their whole agenda is to depopulate the planet. And you know, I think we were the only environmental organization. We never registered with them. We stayed completely away from them. I, you know, disagreed with them my entire life, like, you know, what their actually agendas were. But if you look at the the beef thing is really, really interesting. We are going to help set up a new political party in Ireland, and right now, like, it's, you know, folks are actually writing up the paperwork regarding that, and we were looking at regarding agriculture to increase the national herd of cattle. If it was only increasing by 2 million animals, what that would actually mean, like, you know, there for the Irish economy, the amount of jobs it would create, but the revenue it can create on multiple different fronts, and by introducing again a different style, like, you know, they're into it. Looking at environmental credits, without going back to the whole carbon thing, but looking at environmental credits, what it could be worth. If you increase the herd of cattle up to 2 million animals, the cash revenue from that to the country could be anywhere as high as 46 billion euros just by doing that. If it's done right, instead of what the Irish government has been on about, cutting the herd of cattle, like, you know, by 400,000 animals, you know, completely destroying rural Ireland and destroying the agricultural industry, which is ludicrous. I mean, we're an agricultural country. We have been for years. You know, it's a sustainable, you know, form of labour, right? And of course, one thing the Irish government seems to have to be forgetting: food security should be a national security issue. Instead, now we're importing more potatoes into the country than we're actually even eating. Imagine that. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
And the other one is we're an island nation. We're surrounded by the sea. And I believe Cork Airport is the biggest importer of fish, huge import. Huge. Ireland is a huge importer of fish. And it's just incredible coming into Cork Airport, flown in from France and Spain. Actually, and a lot of that fish, which comes in from after being processed in France and Spain and Portugal, etc., were caught in Irish waters. So this whole idea of being in the European Union, common fisheries policy, handing over control of our waters, the quota for so much of the fish, 85% of the quota of all fish caught in Irish waters goes to EU boats, and Irish fishermen get less than 15% of the quota in Irish waters. Now, that is a real scandal. And as a sovereign independent country, we would have complete control over our fishing waters, which would also, all around the Irish coast, and especially the west and southern coast of Ireland, give massive injection into the more jobs into rural communities and coastal communities around Ireland, which would be very, very positive for us.
Oh yeah, for without
and
a doubt.
You know more than that than anybody, Kieran, because you've been a very successful fisherman yourself.
Yeah, you know, growing up in the industry, it was, you know, it was so different a few years back compared to what it is today. You know, we had so much fish on the south coast, and we saw fish slowly but surely fish numbers starting to decline at a savage rate. I mean, I would estimate between haddock, cod, whiting, all these plays, so on and so forth. Our marine ecosystem is after collapsing. We need to take our waters back. I mean, from the European Union. The common fishery policy has been a disaster, absolute utter disaster. I spoke to a fisherman in Dunmore, County Waterford, there tonight, not long before we made this call. And again, like the amount of fish they're catching now compared to what they would years ago, I mean, it's a way down. But there was a fishing vessel from Belgium, right? One of the smallest coastlines in Europe. and that fishing vessel landed in a port on the south coast there a few weeks ago. And that fishing vessel had more quota for black sole than the entire Irish fleet. That one vessel, I mean, it has the smallest coastline in Europe, and that one, and there's lots of them fishing in Irish waters. That one vessel had more black sole quota than the entire Irish fleet. I mean, just shows you how corrupt the whole thing is.
But that's
What do you think of the
testament
big, Derek,
to-
yourself, what do you think of the other many big issues that are happening in the country at the minute?
When I came back from Canada, right, I moved to Canada in in 08, and I was there for over a decade. But when I returned to Ireland with my family in 2019 to Ireland, I could not believe the country I'd returned to. It had completely changed, completely. Ireland has gone so far left wing, between, from immigration to, climate change, as we spoke of, to, the NGO sector that we spoke of as well. All right, there's 33,000 left wing NGOs in Ireland. That is absolute, right, insanity, but it speaks to, right, the type of policy that is being written in Ireland. When you speak to people on the street and you speak to them about some of the issues that we just discussed, from immigration to climate change to the destruction of our fishing fleet, there is agreements, right, across all sectors of the Irish economy that what is going on in Ireland is absolutely crazy. But you would never see that view reflected in the media in this country, because the government, the media, the NGO class, they work hand in hand. Meanwhile, the public are, they're trying to have their opinion, right, on what's happening, but it's just not heard, because it's such a closed-in system that, voices on the ground, the real voices on the ground, the people that run this country, they can't be heard. You walk into any town or city in Ireland, okay, and it's an ever decreasing number of Irish people. Go to Dublin, it's basically all foreign national. You go to Cork, it's basically all foreign national. And nobody in this country ever had a problem, right, with foreign nationals in this country. We are the land of 1,000 welcomes. Céad Míle Fáilte. We were so proud of that. But there's a growing resentment in this country, not to the people that are coming. It's not their fault. They've been given an offer and they've accepted this offer. But to the government policy that insists on putting foreign people before the indigenous population.
Right.
And it's
well, the problem with
the
big problem with that is, if you look at what the government actually did, they changed a lot of the rules and regs in the country, and they put documents in the form then of PDFs. When you actually go and look for documents, they're really hard to find. And one of the big things they did is the word community. Community was something that was actually changed. And what the government says now is that we're working with the community. And what that means is they're working with the NGOs. They changed, which our definition of community would be, the people in the church, or it could be the GA or whatever. I mean, that was community. But the government changed that. It was actually very clever of them, and very sneaky as well. So they changed that to community, and community became NGOs. The problem with, NGO, non-governmental organization, but if you looked at the last referendum in Ireland, when the Irish government threatened the NGOs, if you don't vote with us, we're going to defund you. So they're not NGOs. They're just, again, puppets for the Irish government to carry out the dirty deeds for them. So if the Irish government wants to, say, put in whatever, say it's an IPAS centre or whatever inside an area, and they want to flood this area with a bunch of unvetted illegal immigrants into a parish, they say, well, we consulted with the community, but it's the NGOs. the NGOs
Yeah.
as a community. I mean, it's so crazy, and the Irish people don't
Yeah.
realize what they're actually doing.
Derek makes a very good point there, but it's almost like a monopoly. What people hear when they read the newspapers or turn on the TV, they hear the view of this incestuous little clique. We used to call the D4 mafia there in South Dublin,
Right.
but now it's not just from D4, but these ideas that Des Fennell decades ago would have talked about this, like what they call, how they like to regard themselves as progressive kind of intellectuals. However, they are the subservient whipping boys of Anglo-American thinkers. Like the ideas from like Portland, like universities in the east coast of America, intersectionalism, the support now for mass immigration and colonization of Ireland without consent. All those ideas come from like American and British universities. There's nothing Irish about it. And the problem is that these people are dripping with cultural self-loathing, and now it's now government policy, in practical terms, that it's always Paddy last and foreigner first. And what we want to do is put our Irish people first in our own country. This is built up by our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and ancestors back here for thousands of years. We belong here. Ireland belongs to us. We want it back, so we have control of our laws, our borders, our budgets. Another big message we want to say to people is something that Derek, you said there a number of weeks ago on, and a very fair point as well. It was, Derek, was that you know what, if the whole thing about that it's good that people get up in the morning, they go to work, they support their family. It gives them pride, it gives them dignity. It shows children that their father loves them, is willing to work and sacrifice for his children. And we have to encourage and reward work rather than penalize people who either take a risk in business or they go out and work hard, they want to do overtime. That I personally, I'd be very much in favor of lower wasteful government spending. We've mentioned here about the colossal amount of money spent on NGOs, on foreign aid. I think our Irish people come first. All these useless projects funding the EU, UN, World Health Organization, WEF, we shouldn't be funding these globalist organizations at all. We should be looking after Irish people first. And an important aspect of that is to lower taxes for workers, to encourage them and to reward them for the work of their labours. Derek, what's your view on that?
The take amongst the public is at the very, very low end of the scale, right? When speaking about government spending, we hear about things like bike sheds. Okay, the government, they paid for a bike shed up at Leinster House, a bike shed made of flimsy steel and glass that cost €360,000, and there is uproar, right? And then there was a security hut that was built at Leinster House, and that cost
1.2 million, I think.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane money. All the builders in this country secretly, right, in their own heads, right, quoted those jobs. I was thinking the bike shed was about 25 to 30 grand, right? The security hut was probably 100 grand at max, okay? But this is what we're talking about, government spending. You have no respect for money when you're spending other people's money, and the Irish government have no respect for the Irish people. We hear about these little projects, but you really have to dig deeper, right, to look at where the bulk of the waste is going. Okay, the NGO sector, or right, do we really call them NGOs? They're not non-governmental. They are governmental lobbyists. That's what they are. That's 7 billion, right, a year. The foreign aid scam. We're paying billions every single year to fund other countries. Nigeria has its own space program. India has its own space program, and we're giving them millions. Meanwhile, there's Irish people dying on the streets day in and day out. They don't have homes. They're sleeping, sleeping in hotel rooms with their children. I spoke to a family right recently, right? It's a 4-person family, the mom, the dad, right, and 2 young kids, and their children were born in hotels, right? And they're now 3 and 4. They've never lived outside a hotel. That is absolutely heartbreaking to me. But this could be resolved in 1 year. In 1 year. So simple. It would be so simple to fix. But we're struggling to find the appetite out there.
You know what? One aspect of, like, we can talk in greater detail a bit later on about the impact, the size of mass immigration, the colonization of Ireland. Roughly now 24% officially of the population in Ireland is non-national. Could be higher than that. We don't know. But that is massive. Just practically, forget about culture for just for a second, and just look at the demographic impact, the economic impact, the impact on the safety of our streets. And it's absolutely colossal. But I believe a massive factor inducing people to come here because they want to have a better life, an easier life. When people offer free money and free accommodation, the Irish taxpayers are funding through the government. The government is taking our money, giving it off. Like, I believe it's 2.4 billion per year spent on IPAS Centre on accommodation alone. So if you put together what has been spent on these, they class themselves as asylum seekers, but really the vast majority are economic migrants. It's 2.4 per year, like 2.4 billion euro per year, just on accommodation for IPAS alone. Top of that, you take the 100,000 Ukrainians, then you're into the legal migration of people from Eastern Europe, and you're into colossal money of welfare. Because Irish taxpayer, we're paying for accommodation, we're paying for their healthcare, the education of their kids, the welfare if they're on the dole. That is colossal money. So every day, all taxpayers' money that the workers in Ireland have produced is seeping out, and we are basically, the government is funding the replacement of the Irish people because many young Irish people can't get jobs. Or they can't afford a house or find an apartment, and they're emigrating to America, to Australia, to the UK, and that's a disaster for Ireland, a cultural, demographic disaster for Ireland. I believe we are living through the most momentous change in Irish history since the plantations, and because of what has happened since 2004, like Derek went away for 10 years, and the change in Ireland is colossal. We have to recognize it. We have to think of solutions to do something about it. And one way is to cut the welfare. There's no way. I believe that we got to stop giving free money away to, at the start, non-Irish citizens. If you don't belong here, you shouldn't be getting free accommodation, welfare, education, housing. It's madness. If we stop giving free stuff, we stop inducing people to come here. Stop the financial incentives.
But if you look at the financial side of that, again, I look at the whole business all the time. My brain will go back to that, and you're talking about 2.1 to 2.2 billion, right? Just on that, look at our tourism industry. Our tourism industry has been destroyed, and this will be a question for yourself, Hermann, there in a second. Look at the amount of money that would actually bring into the economy by, again, fixing the problems we have in our rivers. Building real tourism in Ireland. I was going through some numbers and speaking to some friends in the United States and speaking to some friends in New Zealand and Eastern Europe. We waste money, and we have these crazy policies, right? If you look at the deer, and I always watch and read about how the Irish government handles the overpopulation of deer. So they go along, get the military and shoot all these deer and incinerate them or do whatever. The price to shoot a deer, a red stag in Eastern Europe is about 10 to 11,000 euros for each animal. Imagine you're a farmer and that you're bringing tourists into the country, hunters into the country, leaving them, instead of killing these animals and incinerating them, that you have a farm and that you're getting 10 or 20 deer a year, that's bringing 100 to 200,000 euros a year into that farmer by doing it the right way. These tourists that are coming in, they're staying in hotels, they're drinking beer, they're eating food. I mean, for the economy, it's absolutely enormous. But on the other side of it, Herman, to yourself, right? Look at salmon stocks. Salmon stocks, wild salmon stocks in our rivers have been completely and utterly depleted. In the river, even in the River Lee, where you're again close to there, Derek. I mean, there used to be lots of salmon. Our rivers were full of salmon, and of course, multiple problems like created the pollution, everything else, plus overfishing and industrial fishing south of the Faroe Islands for blue whiting, devastated salmon stocks. But restocking these rivers with hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of smolts, and increase it on a yearly basis. So we've these tourists coming into the country, they're staying in our hotels, they're paying money for it. Instead of the government paying money for migrants inside there, you get tourists back into the country. We get millions of salmon coming back to our rivers on a yearly basis. I mean, what effect would that have on the economy there, I guess, Herman?
Yeah, no, it'd be absolutely massive. I know that over in Iceland and stuff, people pay 10,000 a week for a week's fishing in a good river. Ireland, even when I was near so I go when I was a bit younger, Ireland, the rivers were very. Ireland currently has 10% of the salmon population that we had in the early 70s. 10%, right? So 90% of the stocks have been wiped out. A number of reasons. One, because water pollution and silage and runoff into the rivers. You have predation from seals at the sea, the bottom of the rivers. You have cormorants, gooseanders eating all the young smolts and etc. And then you have massive overfishing. You brought it to prominence, Kieran, a whole thing about blue whiting fishing there. South of the Faroe Islands, we have industrial fishing of krill, of sprat, of sand eels by the Norwegian fishermen, and all around that west coast of Norway, south of Faroes. That has to be reduced dramatically to allow salmon stock. They have the smolts, they have something to feed on. But Ireland has fantastic resources, very attractive country. We've got great rivers. If we invest properly along all the coast of Ireland, and we have these salmon hatcheries for smolts to stock the rivers, to stop poaching, to get rid of predators that I mentioned, get rid of the seals out of the estuaries, allow the fish stocks in general to come back south of the Faroes, we could have a massive wild salmon ranching system in Ireland where the number of salmon returning would increase dramatically. And with that, we could not only get Irish people fish, but also a lot of tourists would come from around the world to fish in Ireland. The salmon stocks would be plentiful again. So Ireland, look, a great country, great people, but we've got to get rid of this useless government who hate our culture, who hate our sovereignty, who want to replace the Irish people at the minute. They're happy to do it. And we've got great potential, and our responsibility, I believe, to look at our problems, come up with solutions to make Ireland, like long-term, a better place. And with the investment and the right ideas, we can make a huge difference. Do you ever do any fishing on the Lee, Derek? Or what are your interests?
Me, playing with my kids, going for hikes, cycling my bike, spending time with my family at the moment. I have a young family, whereas playing with my kids is, that occupies a lot of my time when I'm not working. So, but fishing was never so. Herman, you're going to have to take me fishing someday because, fishing was never my thing. I caught a
I'll tell you what,
once.
Kieran will be the most efficient with big nets.
But
Fishing rod.
But like one of the things people are going to be, when they listen to this, they're going to say, if you increase the herd of cattle, like, the amount of fertilizers and stuff that you put into the water will create a problem. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but there's ways around that. I mean, there's lots of solutions for all these problems. And again, I try to think about job creation always. How can we create jobs? How can we create tens of thousands of jobs for the economy, make the economy stronger, by pulling away from the European Union. And if you look at the coastal communities, how do we keep people inside these coastal communities? How do we create jobs for them? And you look at the seaweed industry. We look at seaweed, and seaweed again, like, you know, for the likes of that, for nutrients in the land, again, you can generate environmental credits that can make it very, very profitable. You know, at the same time, the amount of jobs you can create is immense. I mean, again, you can make coastal communities in Ireland great again, you know, by doing something very, very simple. And of course, like the amount of jobs that you're talking about, that is in the tens of thousands between what we just mentioned, a few of them. And, you know, people often say, well, how are you going to fix the problem of, say, they say homelessness? I said, I guarantee you we could finish that in the first 2 years.
Kieran, can I come on that point about you're talking about seaweeds? People may remember or seen in the past or hearing in the past that along where the soil was very poor in Ireland, let's say West Donegal, Mayo and Galway in various parts of the country, the soil was hard to come by. There wasn't much of it, so that people, say there in Iron Islands, for example, would have to mix sand and seaweed, and that became soil, and they would grow potatoes and that. But what you're talking about is the big, large-scale development of these kind of, let's say, a system to grow a large amount of seaweed along the coast, and that can be used. One is actually used dulse. I love dulse. You rarely see it anymore. It's harder to get, which is the black purpley seaweed. It's absolutely love it. I love it. But it's actually now it's becoming more rare. But they're now selling it in France and all across continental Europe. And one, the seaweed people can eat it, and two, it can be used as a fertilizer. And as you say, on a large scale, Kieran, it can bring great employment back to coastal communities as well, which is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, when you look at that and you really start looking at what you can generate, like not just for rural Ireland, but Ireland as a whole, the amount of jobs that we can create, like, you know, there is absolutely colossal. But when you look at the homeless problem, like when you have Irish people dying every winter on the streets because, you know, freezing to death on our streets, I mean, there is plenty of money there to eliminate the problems that we just spoke about. I do think on the end of year one, or maybe halfway through the second year, the homeless problem in Ireland, we eliminate that. And it's very easy to do that, again, by stop funding these NGOs that are technically not NGOs. Stop money going into these and start a real project, like, you know, there with building homes, and that actually makes sense. But on top of that, eliminate the bureaucracy that actually exists. If you look at what's happening, and speaking to family members in Ireland all the time that's going to build a home, they're jumping through hoops, again, costing them a fortune, you know, trying to build a home. And like, if you own your own land, why should the government, I guess I'm a bit of a libertarian, you know, more so than anywhere to the right or to the left, a bit of, you know, why should the government tell you what you're going to build on your land? If you have a catalogue with 40 or 50 or 60 different styles of homes, that you can pick one of these homes out and you can build it, the government should not have the power to stop you from doing that. And of course, that alleviates the problem, like, you know, with housing straight away. I mean, I know people in Ireland that have, with the last 6 to 7 years, trying to get permission to build a house on their own land, and they can't get it. I mean, there's something really wrong. And again, it's bureaucracy. And like, you know, which is crazy. Non-elected individuals telling people you can't do this or you can't do that on your own land. I mean, it's, you know, it's ludicrous.
We actually have a story here in Ireland, and it's close to me in County Tipperary, and it's a man, right, who goes by the name of Sean Meehan. Now, Sean is a man, he's close to 60, he's retired. He split up with his wife, so his wife kept the family home, right? But Sean needed, right, a place to stay. So he bought himself a little plot of land, and he bought himself a mobile home. He put the mobile home on his newly bought land, and he wrapped it in a log cabin facade. Okay? Well, Lo and behold, the local government contacted Sean and told him that he had no right to have that cabin on his land and that he had to take it down. So he appealed it. He went through all the different channels. He appealed it, right? But he was refused. So he appealed it again. He was brought to court, right? And they told him that unless he tore down his house. Now, don't forget, he also applied for social housing. He applied to the government to give him social housing and he was refused. So he said, where am I supposed to live? And they said, it doesn't matter. But if you don't take down your house, you are going to prison. And lo and behold, he was sentenced to prison. No, right? I don't believe he's gone to prison yet, right? Because there's been so much public interest in this story. I believe the state has kind of backed off temporarily. But that man, 60-year-old man, has been sentenced to prison. And when he is locked up, the state have told him that right, that they will come onto his land with heavy equipment and tear it down. It's
I believe I remember
crazy what's happening in Ireland at the moment. And I don't think the world, they realize this. Ireland is viewed as, fantastic people, fantastic country, beautiful scenery, beautiful, magnificent resources. But people don't realize the totalitarian curve that this country has gone over the last few years. And, a story like that is one instance. Sean Meehan, look it up.
Yeah, I think I remember you being attending the court at the time in the cases. I remember you supporting them practically. Another aspect, Derek, there you were talking about the importance of spending time with your kids and the family and stuff like that. There is this interference of the state in family life, and they are under the influence of these ideological NGOs, looking always to impose this these dangerous. Sick ideologies like for example, this LGBTIQ minus ideology on our kids. This I believe now there's SPHE curriculum has changed for primary schools there. Recently, the government are looking to introduce it without the consent of parents that I'm aware, or the patrons of the schools. They're going to impose it blanket style on the whole of the primary school system. And you're talking about introducing into the minds of young innocent children all this stuff about homosexuality, bisexuality, all like every kind of human sexual kink that you can think of. The one I find most interesting is this trans ideology, this make-believe idea that a male can change into female and female back into male. This abusive language that men can get pregnant and women can have a penis. This kind of constant bullshit of like cocks and procks and I don't know, dicks with dicks and try. But it's dangerous because really you're encouraging vulnerable young children who are going through puberty, who are having difficulty registering that their body is changing, pumping this idea into the mind that actually, do you know what? You were born in the wrong body. And these kind of worries you have about going through puberty, they can all be cured if you mutilate your body by chopping off your breast, by cutting off your penis, by, I don't know, going around as a woman or as a man or the opposite of what you were born as. And it's just like it leads to lifelong sterility for young, vulnerable, impressionable teenagers. And I believe that we as a people must stand up against the state, against these dangerous ideological actors. And we instead must stand up for parental rights and education, that we as the parents of our children, we're the ones who decide, have the final say in what our children are taught in schools, and not some government minister and not some TD in the dock. They're our children, and our children belong to their family. They do not belong to the state. And that's very important.
Absolutely.
Without a
And
doubt.
I
And
mean,
like, the way they're pushing it, and I see it some of these environmental conferences I've attended with the last few years. They're meant to be for, say, recycling plastic or whatever, and you go there and within, might be about that for the first type of 60 seconds in some cases. And next minute they're gone back from pollution, which I like to talk about, and they go from pollution and they're gone back into this trans ideology. And I was thinking, what are we here doing? Yes, I came here to speak about recycling. What is this all about? And of course, when you speak to people after it, the whole thing is about population control and about reducing the population. They're very open about it. They're not hiding it. I mean, they've been saying it there for years now. That this is a good way to actually reduce, the population by introducing, this ideology in there. And of course, it is definitely, one of the most dangerous entities in the world is the World Economic Forum. And, the sooner that people start looking at that as not alone a organization that is extremely radical, but it is, in my belief, I believe it's no better than a terrorist organization. I mean, what it's doing globally to our people, to global economies. Like last year, there was more businesses went bankrupt last year than any other year previously. Record in Ireland and the UK, I believe. And one of the biggest reasons for that, of course, is it's carbon taxes. I mean, again, that's killing it. Who's pushing that? World Economic Forum. I mean, they're constantly pushing it. I know a lot about this space because we generate carbon credits, what we're doing. And of course, if they're willing to give me money for recycling something and generating a carbon credit, of course, I'm going to take it. But I'm the first person to say it. I've been saying it for years. It is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But if they want to give you money, I mean, you're going to take it. But but we're really destroying our economy. Again, one thing that a lot of people don't realize, the Chinese are building solar panels by using forced labor, again, inside in camps. Well reported, it's been reported for years. So you have forced labor inside in camps in China building solar panels. And of course, wind turbines being built and they're being sent to Europe. Do you know that Volkswagen, the car company, one of the most iconic brands in Europe, the Chinese used carbon credits that they sold, the cash from those carbon credits, they bought Volkswagen. And of course, you have stupid Europeans, politicians saying this is the way forward. And the Chinese are making a fortune from it. I mean, slowly they're buying up industries one after another. We're paying for it. The taxpayers, we're actually paying for that. And of course, is it helping the environment? It's doing nothing for the environment. It's doing absolutely nothing. Nothing. All it's doing is creating more poverty for Irish men and women. They're saying that next month or the month after, electricity prices are going to increase another 9.5%. Again, that is carbon taxes that's actually doing this. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
No.
About the election over the last few days, or about trying to get the nomination, but what happened, Maria Steen, how did you? I know myself, I was absolutely heartbroken for her. She came across like that, this really perfect president. What did the two of you feel about that?
It was shocking. It was shocking, actually. Like, right, what our foreign viewers might not understand is, in Ireland, if you want to run for the office of president, you have to get 20 nominations from members of parliament. So you basically have to go to the government or their allies and ask them to nominate you. So Maria Steen, in fairness to her, now she's a Christian conservative lady, beautiful lady, would have made an absolutely outstanding president. She worked her behind off for months to try to get the nominations. And in the days leading up to the close of nominations, she made it to, I believe, was it 18 or 19 nominations?
18 or 20, yeah.
18 out of 20. And it really looked like everyone expected her to get the 20. And she was just short. So now running for president in Ireland, right, we've got three different candidates. We've two government candidates, Jim Gavin, who Kieran has done a big expose on. You should definitely go and check it out. And Heather Humphreys. And then on the other side, right, so so those two candidates are from the socially left-wing Irish government. And then the alternative to the Irish government is the far left option, Catherine Connolly, who has been supported by all the left-wing parties. They're all rowing in behind her. So basically, anybody in Ireland with a conservative, with a nationalist, with a right-wing mindset has nobody to vote for, because the system in this country is rigged. What did you think of it, Herman?
I thought it just showed the contempt of official Ireland for basic Irish democracy. All Maria Steen was asking for was to be allowed to go on the ballot, that the Irish people themselves could have a say. At the minute, as you say, constitutionally, it's a bit of a sit-job job, where it's only you need the approval of 4 different councils, or you need 20 Oireachtas members. And yet, Fine Gael, for example, came out and Micheál Martin was ringing around his TDs and telling them under no circumstances were they, as Fianna Fáil TDs or senators or councillors, even allowed to support independent candidates. So it's a farce. Like, actually, historically, De Valera tried to bring in the political list system, which gave more control to political party leaders and less control to the people. Now, the Irish people, the single transferable vote system gives people quite a lot of power in selecting the candidates they want. It takes it away from the party leaders. But this system that we have for the presidency gives a huge amount of disproportionate power to these political parties. Political parties don't even exist in the Irish constitution. It's the Irish citizens and the Irish government and TDs, etc. So, but at the minute, these political parties, resident political parties in the Dáil, have far too much power. But I believe it wasn't all bad, because people are now confronted with that carry on over the last few weeks, where it's obvious the hatred that official Ireland has for the views of ordinary Irish people. And I believe that this is the wake-up call for many people, and I hope, and I'm sure it will be a beginning of a new conservative and nationalist movement in Ireland, that people, and I hope, and this is what I would advocate, what I really think is important, that people use their voice in every instance that they can. And they must register to vote. Don't say, oh, I hate all politics. Even if you're not interested in politics, politics is very interested in you. These politicians are destroying your country, and it's your responsibility to get up and stand up and do something about it. And one way you can do that is to make sure that you, your family, your friends, all the seed-breeding generation of your family are registered to vote. You get registered to vote, and you go on the day and you put in your ballot. You put a vote, your ballot paper, in the box to let your voice be heard. And you know what? As Derek rightly pointed out there, these 3 stooges that they have on the ballot are, I believe, it's a disgusting lack of choice for the Irish people. We want better candidates with better policies for a better Ireland. And what I would advocate, and other people are advocating, is that they register to vote, they have a vote, and they go in and they spoil the vote, and they put in either Irish Freedom or Maria Steen or a better Ireland or whatever, or Derek Blighe, and that any phrase of their choice, but register the vote, but go in and spoil the ballot paper and show your contempt for these 3 stooges of official Ireland and the far left loony, because their policies are not good for Ireland. And we need a conservative nationalist voice that to get better policies for Ireland on so many issues that we've talked about here tonight, be it mental rights and education, be it fisheries around the coast, our need for the great increase the cattle herd in Ireland, or control immigration on our border. There's so many issues and the problems in the country that we need to come up with solutions to give. We want the freedom to prosper for ourselves and for our children. And I believe there's plenty of talent and plenty of intelligent, well-experienced people in Ireland who can get on board, and also the diaspora living abroad. So they have their experience, they have their knowledge, and let's get together and build a better Ireland again for our kids.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, we'll be wrapping it up. And if Micheál Martin is watching this, I just want to say one thing to him. We're coming. We're going to take our country back. And when we do, we're going to remember who you are. Thank you.